Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to England once again and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a number of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a few different styles, but I think it is definitely fair to say that this brewery is best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is one that I've heard very good things about. I came across this one when I was at Kiosk in Copenhagen, and it really was just the artwork that caught my eye. And then when I lifted up the can, I saw, oh yeah, I've not had something from these guys in quite a wee bit, and now we're here reviewing it on the channel. So it really was just that. It's a style that I know these guys can do very well, and yeah, it should be quite a nice one, as I say. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Cornwall in the southwest of England. And we're going to go to Penryn to be specific. And that, of course, is home to the wonderful Verdant Brewery. So this particular beer is called Unconventional Tactics. It comes in at 8% ABV. And this is another New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. But this one is hopped with Nelson Sauvin, which, as you'll know if you've watched the channel for a long time, I do very much enjoy. But it was the kind of Japanese artwork on this one that caught my eye. So I think this is a can I will be keeping for the future, of course. You guys watching for a long time know my connections to Japan. But yeah, always nice to review a new Verdant double IPA. It's been a wee while. I think the last one we did was in about April or May or something like that. So yeah, when I saw this one, we just had to take a look at this. But yeah, let's crack on then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Verdant Brewery before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated, and you can of course go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Your home country, county, state, whatever you like, you can use that to find beer. But you can also check out the playlist of different beers. You will find this one in the English playlist along with many other things. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then and talk a little bit about Verdant Brewing then. So, Verdant Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are originally from Falmouth in Cornwall, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Adam Robertson and James Heffron, who were later joined by Rich White. So Adam was a designer by trade, and James had been a home brewer for a number of years, while Rich was actually an electrician who helped them build the original brewery, and then quickly after joined as a partner in the company. But they ordered their brewing equipment in 2014, and they started brewing their beers the following year. But initially, they struggled to get their beers recognised in Cornwall because of the traditional culture, although they did prove a big hit across other parts of the country. So yeah, these guys struggled in their home region for the first wee while until people started to, try the new styles and so on. But these guys were originally based in the Tregonigi industrial estate in the west of Falmouth, but this brewery was upgraded to a 16 hectolitre system with a weekly brew capacity of 8,000 litres. But later, they opened up their restaurant or bar on Key Street in 2018, and this came after a crowdfunding campaign, I believe, and they've just opened up a new brewery in Penryn, which is fitted with a 35 hectolitre system, and they opened a tap room there in early 2022, and apparently it's very good for pizza as well, so I think that is somewhere that I'll need to go and check out with my good friend Harry from Blue Nose Beer Reviews. I'll need to chat to him about that. But as of October 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 180 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said earlier, they are mainly known for their different kinds of New England hazy IPAs, although we have had some lagers from these guys, I think, and I'm sure we've reviewed an Imperial Stout from them as well at some stage on the channel. But yeah, as I say, these guys are one of the most respected kind of New England hazy breweries in England, and they are definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Verdant Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, again, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And if you want to learn more about the different beers, you can check out the Untappd page or some of my older reviews. You can, of course, check out my English beer tubing colleagues, the likes of Blue Nose Beer Reviews, Craig at Kent Beer Reviews, Raggy's Beer Reviews. I'm thinking who else would review these? Peter the Clueless Drinker, Rob at Hopsine, Jake at Jake Beer. There's lots of guys out there reviewing all these beers. So yeah, go and see what these guys are saying about Verdant as well. They'll review these beers a bit more regularly than I will, of course, since I'm based in Scandinavia. But yeah, go and check those guys out. But let's crack on and have a wee look at this beer itself. So I'll just let you have a look at the artwork on this one again before we open up. And as you can see, it is absolutely lovely. Love the Japanese artwork on here. You can see the koi carp and everything like that. It just looks very good. My son, of course, his Japanese name is Masamune, after Dati Masamune, who was the youngest ever samurai. He's named after Douglas, the Black Douglas from Scotland as well. So yeah, always like the stories of the samurai and Bushido and things like this. Always been quite interesting. But yeah, you can see plain silver top on the can there. As we mentioned earlier, this one is an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Unconventional tactics, hopped with Nelson Sauvin. We know that hop very, very well. 16% alpha acid. It's from New Zealand, and it quite often gives you this kind of white, green, grapey, gooseberry sort of flavour. So yeah, Hallertau Blanc, of course, is quite a similar one that we have here in Europe, but I haven't seen that used in quite a wee while, come to think of it. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. And as I said, I bought this beer at Kiosk in Copenhagen. I really forget how much I paid for it. I think it might have been maybe about 60 or so Danish kroner. But as I say, it was the artwork that made me get this one, and the fact that I know Verdant will give a good New England double. The Nelson Sauvin kind of caught my eye as well, because I was kind of like, this could be interesting. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I think that is probably enough for the moment. Just have a little look at the beer. So yeah, as you can see, we've poured maybe about 80% of the beer into the glass, but you can see the beer has a solid finger of a frothy, I would say slightly cream coloured head there. It doesn't seem like it's perfect white, but the foam is absolutely beautiful. I mean, just look at this. Look at that. You can see lovely kind of thin, lovely kind of small foamy bubbles there, and the beer itself looks absolutely lovely. So in terms of colour, I would describe this beer as a nice kind of bright pale yellow. This one, it kind of reminds me of, it's like a mix of like a mango and pineapple juice. I always like comparing New Englands to different fruit juices because that's just what they remind me of. So yeah, remember the colour of your beer though depends on the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you'll get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging you do or any adjuncts that you put in will affect the colour of the beer as well. But in the case of New England IPAs or IPAs in general, you don't often have to kind of care about those two variables right enough. But yeah, looks very, very nice, this one. The level of haze on this is kind of what you would expect from both Verdant and from a New England double IPA. And remember, the haze depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast. So yeah, these are things that you need to kind of think about as well. But that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer, of course. So yeah, no real rule about that. Most people would think as you go up the alcohol scale, it would change. But yeah, it is due to the individual contents and things. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation in this beer. A steady stream of smaller bubbles up towards the bottom of the head there, and the head incidentally has faded away to be a really nice kind of thin foamy layer. But yeah, in terms of a New England IPA, this one looks absolutely great. So I think we can take a closer look at the aroma and see what we have. Nothing surprising about the appearance of it though. So aroma time with this one. Oh yeah, that smells very nice. Yeah, first impression of this beer. It's very, very smooth. I mean, from what I remember, for me, when I think about Verdant, I always thought that Verdant had very smooth New England IPAs, but they could be a little bit more wheaty leaning and a little bit more green leaning, and they have a little bit of a more floral character to them. That's exactly what I'm kind of getting with this beer. So yeah, it's really interesting with this one. This reminds me of some of the older Verdant stuff that I had. I can't remember how many Verdant beers we've done. It must be about 10 or 15, something like that. It's hard to remember when you've done 3,500. It's just crazy. But yeah, I mean, aroma wise, this one is really, really nice actually. It gets a big thumbs up from me there. So yeah, you've got that big oily fruitiness, nice green component, good smooth malty backbone with a little bit of bitiness too. I really like it. I really like it. Um, yeah, so you won't be disappointed with this one, that's for sure. So let's kind of break this aroma down a wee bit and just describe it more in depth if you like. So yeah, backbone of the beer. You can smell a little bit of that kind of fresh white hedgehog bread crust with the kind of flour still on the crust. You definitely get a good little bit of that out of this beer. That is absolutely there. So yeah, on top of that, you've got a really nice on top of that, there is a very nice kind of I would say kind of just like there's a teeny little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bread. I'm getting a little bit of that, but then you get that big fluffy um white bread from the barley malt in this beer. Above that though, you get the more dense white bread from the you get the more dense white bread from the from the wheat in this one, and you get a little bit of the wheaty bitiness at the back of the nose too. But overall, the beer is really quite smooth, I have to say. Um, yes, it really is quite smooth in that sense. A little bit of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose, fresh white bread crust, um, teeny touch of wholemeal bread, soft white bread, and then the more dense white bread from the wheat. On top of that, there's a lovely bit of there is a lovely little bit of oaty creaminess to this beer as well. So yeah, again, I really do like how this how all of that goes together in this beer. So yeah, the thick wheaty white bread, then the kind of creamy oatiness in the middle of the nose, and you can smell that this beer is quite fresh. As I've always said, the oats in a New England IPA are an indicator of how fresh it is. The creamier they are, the fresher your beer is. The drier they are, the beer has aged a little bit. So you will find that in these beers actually, but this one you can smell it is nice and soft and wet and creamy. This beer is pretty damn fresh actually. So yeah, that is pretty awesome. Yeah, the way that this goes together really is very nice. Yeah, malt base, can't complain about that at all. It does, it's just typical Verdant for me. I don't have these beers that often, and so maybe with this brewery compared to say, some of the ones that I'm going to have from like Fermenterarna or Duck Pond or things here in Sweden, I'm not going to notice the slight differences between recipe to recipe. For me, it's more of a kind of overview of Verdant and their kind of malt profiles that I have. But again, this kind of keeps in like a slightly more wheaty leaning New England IPA, but then you've got all the others, the kind of more green note to it as well. So malty base on this one is very nice. As I've said to you before, for me there are 6 different ways a New England IPA can lean. They can be more yeasty and farmhousey, kind of rye leaning and grainy. Those two are a bit more common in American brewed New England IPAs, but they can be more wheaty and bitey, oaty creamy, barley malt bready, and they can be a little bit sweet as well. So these are the 6 elements I think you should look for in a New England IPA. And as I say, this one has a good little bit of oaty creamy character, but at the same time it has that Verdant slightly more wheaty note, I would say. So yeah, I think that is pretty nice. The other thing with a malt base is you have a little touch of like a Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch sweetness to it, but not too much, not that much in this one, I have to say. It is more kind of oatiness that's coming out of that. But when it's 8% ABV, you would expect just that little touch of sweetness too. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. We'll start with the green component. So there's teeny tiny little bit of earthiness in there, but as you would expect from Nelson Sauvin, this beer does have a good little bit of kind of floral character to it. I mean, for me, like Nelson Sauvin, I had a beer that was a single hop Nelson Sauvin before, and I think it was a West Coast IPA, and the level of kind of floral bitterness you got out of it was really interesting. And remember, when it comes to hopping your beer, there are 3 kinds of hopping that you can do. You can do the early addition hopping, which is going to give you the majority of your bitterness. That's within the first hour of your wort boil. You can do the late addition hopping, which is in the last half hour of your wort boil, and that gives you, a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Then you've got dry hopping, which is all about the flavour and aroma. So yeah, the way that kind of goes together is quite interesting. But New England's rely on the latter 2 types of hopping, whereas West Coast IPAs use all 3. So yeah. this one for me, yeah, the green component, you can tell because it's quite bright. This one does rely on late addition and dry hopping. That's usually the giveaway. When you've got a really deep dank note, that tells you there's been a bit of early addition hopping. But yeah, the floral character in this beer is nice and bright. You've also got a good little bit of grassiness to this one. But to me, the green component smells kind of oily in a sense. It's not too pungent, actually. So yeah, that is really quite interesting. On the fruity side of things, it's kind of as you'd expect. Nelson Sauvin is very straightforward in its fruity character, so you're getting some of that kind of white, green grapey character, but you are getting that little bit of a more oily gooseberry out of this one as well. Yeah, it's a really interesting smelling beer. This one quite straightforward, as I say, on its hoppy side, but yeah, the malty side shows you everything you would expect from Verdant, of course. So yeah, take a wee bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of these beers before you get stuck in. But I think we should pour the rest of this in and have a wee taste of this beer. This is going to be good. So yeah, that goes together nicely for sure. The aroma of this is lovely. But let's get stuck into this one then. This is the Unconventional Tactics, an 8% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from Verdant Brewery, Verdant Brewing in Penryn now, not Falmouth, down in Cornwall. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that is pretty damn nice actually. First impression of it is, it's actually very, very smooth and very creamy. New England IPA, this one, so it goes together. It does go together really quite well in my opinion. I really like, as I say, how this goes together. It's a big, big thumbs up. So yeah, I do like what this beer has in store for us with this. It goes about its business very nicely. I've been told some people like me saying that catchphrase, so yeah, this beer does go about its business nicely. Kind of as I would have expected, but like I say, this one's a wee bit more creamy. This is more, to me, this beer reminds me of more of some of the track ones that I've had. Although in fairness, the kind of wheaty and more bright green elements come out of this one a wee bit later on, I would say. So yeah, this is really interesting. It could just be the nature of the Nelson Sauvin hop, of course. Um, so yeah, but yeah, as I say, lovely beer and it's pretty damn fresh. So you have to give credit to Shiosk as well for getting this thing in so fresh, to be honest. But yeah, let's kind of break this beer down as we always do. But this is a very, very nice, easy drinking New England double IPA. So yeah, middle of your palate then with this beer. Backbone is kind of this is one of the beers where the aroma that we described is actually quite similar to the flavour. So you can feel backbone of the beer. You've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust to this one. That absolutely is forming the backbone of the beer. Yeah, a little touch floury, nice little bit of fresh white bread crust, but that's there. You get a little I almost get a teeny little bit of woodiness coming out of the beer toward the front of that middle third of your palate. But again, I think it works quite well. So yeah, that is very, very nice. On top of that layer though, on top of that bread crusty layer, for me, the further into the aftertaste you go, you do get a little touch of you get a little touch of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character, but then above that you start to get you do start to get a really nice kind of fluffy white bready character coming out of it. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together that way is really, really nice. I do like that big breadiness that it has. I say just the fresh bread crust, a little bit of wholemeal bread, then you get the kind of fluffy bread from the barley malt in this one. But above that, you can feel the thicker and more dense wheaty layer there, and it does actually have a little bit of zip to it. The wheat does have a wee bit of zip there, but it really acts as a kind of smoothening agent in the beer, which I very much enjoy. So yeah, So yeah, I do really like that. Um, in terms of the wheaty layer above this is very, very nice. But yeah, on top of that, you start to get the oatiness out of this beer, and it's kind of down the middle line of your tongue. The oatiness is really nice and very, very smooth, actually. So you can feel that nice big oaty creaminess in the middle of your palate as you move further out toward the edges of your tongue. It is a little bit. It does give you a little touch of dryness there, but no, the oats in this beer are very fresh, and it is almost just a little touch kind of porridgey and things. You can really feel that as you move out toward the um, the edges of your palate there. But in the centre of your palate, you'll feel a little circle there, and that's where you get a little touch of this kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing, and that is, of course, the alcohol coming out of the beer. You've got that nice big 8% sort of thing in it. So, yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is it really is very, very nice, actually. So, gets a big thumbs up from me. Um, yeah, so yeah, nice kind of, so say, just a little bit of that Werther's Original sweetness and the big kind of oaty creaminess, kind of more dense down the middle line of your tongue, that comes out there, and as you move out toward the edges of the palate, it's got a little bit more kind of oaty creaminess to it as well, as I say. So a little bit of dryness as well, which gives you a nice sweetness to the oats. Other than that, I don't think we need to say anything about the middle third of your palate on this one. So to the let's go to the back third of your palate then. So the border region between middle third and back third of your palate. Again, you can feel a little bit of a bready build up. You can feel that little bit of a bready build up there, but you also have, so you've also you get that little bit of bready build up in there. Then the base of the back third of your palate, again you get a wee bit of the bread crust there, but it's just that little bit more grainy. You've got a wee touch, a slightly taller layer of kind of wholemeal brown bread there. Then you get the kind of fluffy airy white bread there, and again that layer is much taller. But on top of that, you can feel the wheaty layer, and the wheat layer, as I said, does have that kind of slightly, bitey. It does have that kind of bitey, wheaty kind of character to it. Um, so yeah, you do have that kind of wheaty, bitey kind of character to it sitting above there. Then above all of that, you've got that nice kind of you do have that more kind of airy, yeasty sort of thing out of it. Um, and the yeasty kind of notes of this one, they are very kind of airy and white bready and things like that. Um, so yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense is actually kind of interesting. So you get that the yeasty notes you get in this are a very slightly farmhousey. There's a little bit of cracker in there. There's a little bit of that woody white bread. But yeah, this beer, as I say, it's got quite a bit of oaty character. But for me, yeah, it really leans toward being a bit more of a wheaty New England IPA, that's for sure. So on the back third of the palate, you can feel the flavour is a good little bit taller. Then as you come further forward, it just condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, I like how that goes together. On the hoppy side of things, let's move forward to that. So on the hoppy side of things with this beer, in the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little touch of earthiness there. As you move further forward, you start to get more of a kind of floral aromatic character out of the beer. And as I say, there's a little touch of dankness under there, but the whole green component of this beer is actually quite wet in some ways. So it's got quite a wet and kind of oily character to it, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, pay attention to that. But yeah, that nice, little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you move further forward, it really becomes more floral and kind of like a wet, oily floral. Then it does get a little touch of spice as you reach the front kind of corners of the palate, but not overly much. Round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and it's got a wee bit more of a kind of oily character to it as well. But yeah, the way this beer goes together in that sense is really, really nice. So yeah, big kind of wet, you know, grassy characters to this one. A little bit of zestiness, but yeah, the green component for me is actually quite smooth. And that's kind of in keeping with the fruity character that we're getting from this one from the Nelson Sauvin. So yeah, let's look at that kind of front third of the palate and the fruity side of the beer then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a little bit of that bready build up there. The base of the front third of the palate is a little bit more kind of, as I say, it's a little bit more, yeah, you get that smooth white bready sort of thing there. Then above that you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So above that, as I say, it's quite a, you know, it really is a mix of, you get toward in the back half of that, yeah, in the back half of that front third of your palate, you get the more kind of white, green, grapey notes, the slightly more dry things. But then as you move further forward, I really get more of a kind of gooseberry. There's a more of a kind of oily gooseberry character coming out of the beer in that sense, and maybe just right on the very front tip of the tongue, there's a very slight hint of lime, and that kind of mixes in with the kind of grassy esters that the beer has. So yeah, the way that that goes together in this sense is really, really nice actually. So you get, yeah, that little bit of that kind of white green grapey sort of thing, little bit of an oily, little bit of a more oily gooseberry note, and then just a wee tiny hint of lime mixing with the grassy side of things. I think that's a good way to describe the fruit in this one. Nelson Sauvin, it gives you a beautiful flavour, but it's quite, you know, when you've got a single hop beer like this, it's really quite straight shooting in a sense. So I think the Nelson Sauvin and the way the oats are in this beer really give the impression of a more kind of creamy New England IPA, which is, it reminds me of Track a little bit actually. Track Brewing's beers are kind of like this, but this one, you know, in the background you do get that more wheaty and green thing with this. I think the kind of the floral kind of aromaticity in this beer builds a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. So it does show you've got the wheaty bitiness and the kind of brighter green side that you would expect of Verdant. So this is, you know, quite an interesting one when we think about it from the perspective of this brewery, in my opinion. Overall, just as a New England IPA, it is pretty damn good, and it's up there with what we've had from Verdant in the past, and the, you know, the best English New England IPAs that we've had as well. So yeah, this is a really, really nice one for me. So yeah, as I always say, just savour it, because this, for me, this is very, very good. I've not had a Verdant beer in quite a wee while. I've not had a Nelson Sauvin New England IPA in a wee while actually. So yeah, have a go at this for sure and just see what you think. Beautiful beer, so thumbs up to Verdant. Let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So yeah, mouthfeel of this beer, it's kind of pushing toward the top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. This beer really does have a kind of silky and kind of slightly oily mouthfeel to it as well. So yeah, kind of silky and oily mouthfeel, absolutely. And yeah, it is really nice, and I think the oily character really suits the Nelson Sauvin as well. So yeah, malty side of things in this beer, you do have the malty side of things in this beer. You really have a very nice kind of breadiness to it. It's got a little touch of kind of dryness and graininess and things, but yeah, you've also got a good little bit of sweetness coming out of this beer, which I do like actually. So there's a little touch of that in the aftertaste, and I think the sweetness does build a little bit. But yeah, very smooth and slightly bite. You know, the wheaty character gives you a little bit of bitiness, so lovely smooth breadiness, a little bit of wheaty bitiness, and a wee touch of sweetness. That describes the malt base. IBU wise, this is quite a low IBU beer. This one for sure. As I say, we rely on late addition and dry hopping, in these New England IPAs. So this one is quite. This one really is quite low in its IBUs. I think maybe, yeah, like sort of 30 at the absolute most, but it feels a little bit lighter than that, to be honest with you. I wouldn't be surprised if it's even less than that, but very low IBU in this one for sure. Then we've got that nice oily fruity character to the beer. As I say, it's just a really solid New England double for me, and you know, Verdant have done a great job with this. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about this one, to be honest with you. So yeah, as always with my reviews, thank you for watching and thank you for your support. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Verdant Brewing as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the near future. So yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Verdant's social media. This one was the Unconventional Tactics, a single hop Nelson Sauvin New England double IPA. Beautifully done beer. Certainly would not hesitate to drink this again. So till the next time, slange at school, cheers, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Ciao.